Welcome back to Realag Radio. It's now time for the top ag news stories of the day. Lots to get through here today. Hey, great news for all you snowbirds out there. Some of these crazy, just nonsensical rules that applies to cross-border travel appear to be sort of, we're getting a little bit closer to some common sense. Ottawa is going to ease border restrictions for fully vaccinated travelers who soon will no longer be required to take a molecular COVID-19 test before arriving into the country, and dropping its recommendation that Canadians avoid international travel for non-essential purposes. Well, thank goodness. In addition, according to the Globe and Mail, travelers won't have to quarantine at home while awaiting the results of random PCR tests taken upon arrival in Canada. So you'll be able to get back into the country by just taking an antigen test, which makes way more sense than requiring people to do a PCR, especially on a trip. You head down to Grand Forks for a weekend, or there's lots of cross-border towns that I think a lot of Canadians like to go to. I know for our own family, this now saves us a ton of money when it comes to baseball season for the kids as we go into Montana for a lot of league games and tournaments and things like that. So this is a really good step, and hopefully we get really soon to the point where you won't even need to do any sort of a test, which is similar to the U.S. You do not need a test to cross into the U.S. by land. You do by plane, but not by land. So once again, I'm not sure how much sense that makes either. Statistics Canada says the annual pace of inflation topped 5% for the first time in more than 30 years, driving much of the increase in January were prices for housing, gasoline, and groceries. You know this. I don't need to tell you this. You know it. You're feeling it. You're looking in your own bank account. Gasoline prices were up 31.7% last month compared with January of 21. Ouch. Excluding gasoline prices, Statistics Canada says the annual rate of inflation would have been 4.3% in January. So fuel, a big part of that spike. Prices for groceries increased year over year by 6.5% for the largest yearly increase since May of 2009. Now, there's another story in the Globe where it kind of focuses a little bit more on some of the grocery stuff. So grocery prices have jumped 5.7% over the past year, the sharpest increase in a decade. Bacon prices are up 19%, condiments have risen 10%, and fresh fruit is up 5.6%. I'm actually surprised fruit is not up more, to be honest with you. Just a general statement, my perception. It's not generally the sort of thing that gets the Bank of Canada's attention. After all, higher interest rates can't alleviate a cold snap in Florida that's ruined produce. But on Wednesday, the central bank dedicated a chunk of its quarterly monetary policy report to the issue, and the outlook isn't all that encouraging. Here's a quote. These increases in food prices will likely continue, the bank said, adding those increases should remain above the historical average for the rest of the year. Okay, so this continues. Multiple countries impose bans on Canadian poultry. Multiple trading partners have placed bans or restrictions on import of Canadian poultry following avian flu outbreaks in 2 Atlantic provinces. South Korea and the Philippines, for example, put restrictions on live poultry, meat, and eggs originating from Canada. And South Africa will also accept poultry products packaged before only accept poultry products, packaged before January 17th of 2022. So we don't cover a lot of poultry news here, but I know this is something the poultry sector in Canada is paying very close attention to. Of course, those are the same countries, South Korea and the Philippines, oddly enough, that also put restrictions on Canadian beef based on that atypical case of BSE back in December. Both have since lifted that temporary ban. So let's hope that this gets rectified as quickly as possible. Canadian movements of cattle. This is a story from the Daily Livestock Report with the CME. Cattle flows in North America are developing once again. Some atypical patterns. Last year, Canada started about mid-year shifting to exporting significantly higher volumes of feeder cattle to the U.S. and outpaced 2020 by about 600,000 head, which is a 22% increase. Early in 2022, that trend is continuing with the early weeks of the year, about 3 times higher than the 2021 volumes. Canada's cattle on feed numbers, however, are not down, but were 12% higher on January 1st, 2022. Canada has been battling significant drought in the prairie provinces, which is very likely a key role in sending feeder cattle south. Also, 2 Saskatchewan co-ops are in the acquisition game. They're expanding their service to farm customers from the acquisition of Paragon Ag Services Limited. So Lake County Co-op and Prairie North Co-op have entered into an agreement to purchase Paragon's 3 Saskatchewan retail ag sites and 2 anhydrous ammonia locations. This means these local co-ops will grow their service footprint and add dry fertilizer and anhydrous ammonia assets to the business. Terry Tremblay, general manager at Prairie North Co-op, says they have made strategic investments to grow their ag business over the past year. More on that story is at RealAgriculture.com. Really focus this week, once again, on biofuels in the U.S. So a Senate panel hearing is on the RFS today. The Senate Environment and Public Works Committee holds a hearing today on the Renewable Fuel Standard, a session that features testimony from a number of different legislators and companies. The session comes on the heels of a report released this week which indicated that the production of corn-based ethanol results in greater greenhouse gas emissions than gasoline. That got the attention of a lot of people. The authors of the paper put together a series of worst-case assumptions and cherry-picked data for the report, according to Jeff Cooper, president of the Renewable Fuel Association. He said that in a statement. The association argues that even with the tillage, past studies have shown corn ethanol still produces fewer emissions than gasoline. Another, what else we got here? We talked about rising food prices earlier. Parts of Africa are this story is in the Wall Street Journal. Parts of Africa are contending with a wave of inflation that is, by some measures, even worse than the supply shocks cascading around the rest of the world. Food prices are at highest levels in over a decade, according to the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, compounding the plight of some 40 million people thrown into poverty by the impact of COVID-19 pandemic and its accompanying lockdowns. That is creating a food crisis that threatens to spill over into unrest. In some places, it's already driving people to immigrate. Over the past 12 months, some 100,000 Ugandans, including teachers, accountants, and social workers, have migrated to wealthy Gulf states of the Middle East, according to government data. That flow could pick up pace as prices track higher, undermining what has been one of Africa's economic success stories. So there you go. Oh, we got time for one more. Kraft Heinz has reported earnings, lower revenue that beat expectations in the latest quarter. And also, of course, like other food companies, they have been raising prices on products amid inflationary pressures. The maker of food products such as Heinz tomato ketchup and mac and cheese, well, who didn't live off that in university? They said net sales slipped to $6.71 billion from $6.94 billion in the year earlier quarter, but came in ahead of analyst expectations at $6.6 billion. That's all the time we have today for the top ag news stories of the day. Hey, you can provide me your feedback. Why not? We talked about a lot of stuff today. What did you think about some of the stuff that we talked about earlier in the show? We interviewed Mike Hofford from FCC. We heard from the Weston Family Foundation a competition about producing fruits and vegetables or berries year-round in Canada. Big money being thrown around there. As well as BSF had some comments about supplies of glufosinate in Canada as well as in Vigor canola. You can comment by sending me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com, or you can find us on social media. We are on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. You can also call the Real Ag listener line, 855-776-6147. Thanks, everybody, for getting real and getting connected with Real Ag Radio, and we'll, of course, chat again tomorrow. Cheers, everybody.